Okay, so we could deal with step 2. We're going to add another helper package, and what we're going to use this time is React Cropper. So if you just search Google for React Cropper, this is the component we're going to be using. So we'll just go to the GitHub repository, take a look at the documentation for this. And what we've got is a quick example, and all we need to do is npm install React Cropper. Now, this project did seem abandoned for some time, but it has recently been updated, and it also works nicely with TypeScript now as well. So this component is in a good place. I initially thought I would need to ditch this for this version of this course, but it has recently been updated. So it's in a good place now, and we can certainly make use of this. So what we'll do, we'll go back to VS Code, and let's open up our terminal, and need to be inside the client app for this. And we'll say npm install React-Cropper. And like I say, it comes with a type definition file now, so nothing else apart from this. That said, we do appear to have an error when we try and install this. Now, this is something new in Node npm. It doesn't allow us to automatically install things that have out-of-date dependencies. So the React Cropper relies on React version 16, for instance. But of course, we're using React 17, or maybe you're far into the future and it's React 18. But what we can do is we can take a look at the warning here and tell us what, and this tells us what we need to do to get around this. We can use either the force flag, or we can specify that we want legacy peer dependencies. And we can use this to get around the npm warning. We didn't used to need to do this, but we do need to do it now. So what we can do is just add on list switch, and we can press return, and this time it's going to go ahead and install React Cropper for us. I have tested this, it does work fine in React 17, and hopefully they'll continue to maintain this package so that you don't need to work around those particular warnings. But anyway, let's go and make use of React Cropper. So what we'll do, we'll create another new component inside our image upload folder, and we'll say new file, and we'll say photo widget cropper.tsx. And what we're going to do inside here is we're going to import React from React, just as per normal. And we're going to say export default function, and we're going to say photo widget cropper, and we're going to return in here. Let's see if we can get cropper in from React Cropper, and we can, which is good. But what we also need inside here is the cropper.js CSS. So what we'll do is we'll add the import for the CSS here. This is the only place we need this, so we don't need to add this at our index.tsx level. So we'll say import cropper.js dist, and then we need the cropper.css. And our cropper, which doesn't need a closing tag, what we'll do inside here is just create the cropper properties. Now, one of the properties we're going to need is the source image, and we're going to get this from our image preview, but we don't have the functionality there, so I'll just add image in text as a placeholder. We'll also give it some style, and we'll give it a height property of 200 to match our drop zone, and we'll give it a width property of 100%, so it takes up the full width of the grid that it's contained in. Now we're going to give it some other properties. Now we want square images in our site. We don't want rectangular images that will cause mayhem in our CSS, and we want to make our CSS as easy as possible. So if we give it an initial aspect ratio and an aspect ratio equal to 1, this is going to enforce square images. Now Cropper gives us the ability to give us a preview of the cropped image, and it uses CSS classes to do this. So what we'll do is we'll specify the preview is .image-preview. And then we're going to configure various Cropper options that we can add here. Now there's a lot of different Cropper options, and if you want to see the full list, then you can obviously check the GitHub repo, the documentation. You can also use the TypeScript definition file to go and look at this, and if we press F12, then we get taken to the index or the type definition file, and this extends Cropper options, and if we press F12 here, then we get taken to the different options that we're currently looking at the moment. And unfortunately, they don't have a huge amount of description, so you need to go from the titles or take a look at the documentation itself. So what we're going to do is just set up a suitable list of options in our cropper that's suitable for our app, and please feel free to play around with this. But the guides, do we want guides on this? We're going to set this to false. We'll set the view mode equal to 1. There's 4 different view modes to choose from. We're just going to go for the one with option number 1. The auto crop area we're going to set to 1. The background, we'll turn this off, so we'll set this to false. So we also need to pass to our cropper a function that we pass to an onInitialized property here. And what we'll do is we'll create this in its parent component, the photo upload widget. And we'll make use of that in here so that we can use the results of the crop function to get a blob of our file, as that's what we're going to be sending up to the server after the image has been cropped. So what we'll do, below our state here, we're going to create another piece of state, and we're going to say const cropper and set cropper equals use state, and we're going to make it a type of cropper. And weirdly, it's not giving us an error for the cropper here, but we don't have it imported at the top. Interesting. So I'm just going to copy it from the photo widget cropper and paste it inside here. And it's grayed out. How interesting. Okay, let's see if we can get away with not adding it then. And we may need to come back, of course, if this gives us an error. So what we need is a function of what to do when we crop our images. So we're going to create a function, and we'll call it onCrop. And we're going to check to see if we have a cropper set. And what we're going to do is pass an initialization function to our photo widget cropper to initialize the cropper. And if we have it, then we can make use of its functionality. So inside the cropper, we've got a method to get the cropped canvas. And then what we can do is specify that we want to pass this as a blob, and then we can say that the blob as a parameter, and then for the time being we'll just say console.log and blob, because we don't have a photo upload function at the moment, but we do want to make sure that when we crop our image then something's going to happen. And what we should also do, because we're setting a preview property in our files, and if we go and take a look at the photo widget drop zone, then we're using this URL create object URL. Now this is going to hang around in the client's memory unless we dispose of this once we're done with it. And one guaranteed way to do that, if we go back to our photo upload widget, is we can use a use effect to clean up our component after it's disposed of. And the way that we use this is that we just supply a return value or a return callback. So we'll add a function to our return, and then what we can do is specify that files, and for each file in files, and we'll pass in file of type any. Then we can say URL dot revoke object URL, and we want to pass in file dot preview, which is where we're using memory to get the preview of that image. And then we just need to pass in our files as a dependency to our use effect. And this just guarantees that we clean up after ourselves. Now we're going to need to pass 2 properties down to our cropper. We're going to need the image preview, and we're going to need the set cropper function. So what we'll do, instead of the image preview that we have here, what we'll do is we'll swap this for the cropper. So we'll say photo widget cropper, and we'll pass down the set cropper equals set cropper. And what we'll also do is pass down the image preview. So we'll say image preview equals, and we'll say files at array index 0 dot preview. And then we can go to our photo widget cropper once again and make use of these. So in our cropper, what we'll do is we'll add an interface, and we'll call it props, and we'll say image preview is going to be a type of string, and we'll have our set cropper method, and we'll say cropper of type cropper, and we'll return void. And then what we can do is destructure these props. So we need our image preview, and we need the set cropper, and pass in props as the type, and we'll set the source of the image to the image preview, and we'll set the onInitialized property in here equal to, and we'll say cropper as the parameter, and we'll say set cropper, and we'll pass in the cropper. And we're clean of errors, so that's a good sign. And what we'll do is we'll just set the, or just use the image preview that's created from this and display that in step 3. So what we'll do, we'll go up to our photo upload widget, and step 3 for the preview and upload. All we need here is a simple div, and it could be self-closing. And we just need to give this a class name equal to image-preview and a bit of style, and we're going to set a min height property to 200, and we also need to set the overflow equal to hidden so it doesn't fall out of the box that it's going to be contained in when a user's viewing different resizing options in there. So we should be good to go and test now. So let's go take a look. And we'll go back to our browser and to the photos and click on Add Photo. So let's just drag in Lego Batman once again, and we can see our image with the cropper, and we should be able to move this around, resize, zoom in, and all of that stuff, and see it in a preview on the right hand side. Of course, we need buttons to either approve or upload the photo or cancel. So we'll just add those in now. And what we'll do, we'll put our div inside a fragment so that we can add some buttons in line with this. So I'm just going to cut the div, stick it inside the fragment here, and under this what we'll do is we'll add a button group. So we'll say button.group, and need the group on the end here as well, and we'll give it a width equal to 2, and then inside here we'll just have 2 buttons. And we'll give it an onClick event equal to onCrop, and we'll make it positive, and we'll give it an icon equal to check. And we'll just copy this down, and the onClick event in this case we'll use a function and say set files, and we'll just set the files back to an empty array. We'll remove the positive, and the icon we'll use will be close. So what we should be able to do is go back and test this functionality. What we want to do is make sure that we've got a blob inside there. Let's just refresh the page because that looks a bit weird. And we'll go to our photos, click on Add Photo, and of course we need to check to make sure that we actually have some files before we display the buttons, because that looks a bit weird. So we'll go back and we'll just add an expression and just say files, and files.length is greater than 0, and we'll say double ampersand, and we'll take the closing bracket and put it after the fragment here and reformat, and let's go take a look. So that's more like it. The buttons have gone. And if we drag an image in once again, we see the image, and let's just go and inspect and to the console, and let's just move around our image and select, and let's click on the green tick, and what we should see in here is the blob, and this is what we're going to use to upload to our API. So that's what we want to see at the moment. What we'll take a look at next is adding the photo upload method so that we can actually do such a thing.